Hello everybody. Today we're going to talk a little bit about critical thinking and speaking. So you've already read the chapter and you've sort of built a familiarity with these three key concepts that your chapter addresses. What we're going to do today is dive into those a little bit and think a little bit about what it means to think critically. But before we do that, I want to talk a little bit about why. Now, we talked at the very beginning of this term, you will remember, about ethics. It's one of the first three key points, right? Transactional communication, making meanings between speaker and audience, but that raises the ethical question, why can't you just up and lie? This is another one of those reasons. Because one of the things that public speakers have is power. We don't usually think about this, right? Especially not in a class setting. It doesn't feel very powerful to have to get up and record a speech so that somebody else can judge it, does it? It doesn't feel very powerful to have to follow all these regulations and do all these things that the rubric says that your teacher points out. But that's not the kind of power we're talking about here. We're talking about the kind of power that you're building towards. Think about your community members. The people you've worked with in your learning community this semester so far. They have some influence in your life, right? What you pick for a topic, maybe even the way you present your speeches. Now think about some longer relationships. Do you have a significant other? Maybe a very close best friend or roommate? What about your family members? Those are relationships that have a lot of power, don't they? If your parents teach you that something is right or wrong, and you believe it from them, that's a lot of power. And public speakers have a similar type of power. Think about ministers, imams, rabbis, the religious leaders in our lives. What kind of power do they have? To teach us right and wrong, good and bad, to define what it is that a higher being wants from us. Think about professors, the kind of power that someone in my position has. If I say you have to stand up and flap your arms around for a while, or think about your spine being long, practice bending your knees, all those funny things I've asked you to do, you're probably going to do it. That's power. And that is really the core of why we think about critical thinking as a core element of public speaking. Because you are taking on a responsibility with that power. A responsibility that the words you say will make your world a better place. Not just for you, but also for the community of people around you. Now, I can't define for you who's in your community. Every religious organization on the planet would tell you that your neighbor is all of the world, but I am not your religion teacher here. I am instead here to say that when you stand in front of an audience, no matter who you choose or what you imagine them to be, they are the people to whom you have a responsibility. A responsibility to speak ethically, to treat them with fairness and honesty, to think about your own ideas, to not share a single story that might sway them with incoherent or untrue meanings, but instead to speak thoughtfully, kindly, and in a way that makes the world a better place. So sometimes we don't necessarily think about public speaking as a form of power, but I want you to address it as such today. Think about the kind of power you're exerting if you have a true belief that you simply refuse to question. Think about the kind of power you're exerting if you only question and are never accepting of anything. And think about the kind of power for good that you, as a public speaker, can exert if you apply critical thinking to try to make your world a better place. Thank you, everybody.